Because the health and fitness world can get a little nutty, it's time for Body Kindness. Today, we're going to talk about that Biggest Loser study.
Now I'm going to ask Rebecca, once and for all, what is the best way to lose weight?
Hello, and welcome to Body Kindness, where happiness and health begin by being good to yourself. I'm your host and your coach, Rebecca Scritchfield. And I'm very excited once again this week, especially this week, to have my very good friend, Bernie Salazar, here with me.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening in.
And today I would say, Bernie, we have a lot to talk about. Just right out of the, just to start us off somewhere, where were you when you heard about this Biggest Loser study?
I actually was, to be very honest, at home on my couch, and I received a text from a certain someone by the name of Rebecca Scritchfield. I had no clue what was happening. And it's interesting. This is how, for our listeners out there, this is how Rebecca's mind works, and I love it. She said, check this out, and did you know about this? Like right away, you wanted to know, how could I have held this back? That's kind of how I read the message, and I just chuckled and I said, literally, I had no freaking clue.
Well, now you do.
Now I do.
You
Yes.
and everyone else in the world. So I was minding my own business, trying to crank out some book, like kind of manuscript revisions, and on a tight deadline. And because I cannot completely close out my email as much as I try, I was just headline skimming, and I get New York Times alerts. And so the alert was right in there and hooked me right with the subject line, after the Biggest Loser, their bodies fought to regain weight. And I can't even tell you the mixed emotions. Like, first of all, I was like, whoa, I instantly thought of you. But I actually got very excited. I didn't know, anytime there's something that might hint at size diversity or, that dieting's not the answer, I get excited. And then usually I get, oh, wait, there's going to be some horrible things in the article that are going to make me less excited. But I really couldn't wait to read what the article was, and I knew that there was going to be lots of attention, and it seems just like in general, I mean, when I asked you to do the podcast with me, I really didn't have hardly any intention of talking about The Biggest Loser, except for just that if people might remember you from it, and we talked a little bit about it just so people understood your experience. But I just feel compelled that now we got to talk about it even more, because this is something that was shared widely, and it's a big story when other news outlets cover the original coverage. So it didn't just show up in the New York Times, but it showed up in medical news, it showed up on NPR, and many other places. Bloggers, former contestants it's a brawl between the contestants.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because first of all, you had told me about it. I read the article, and then I am a serious, and I mentioned it before, I think briefly on our podcast, a serious NPR listener. And I've always wanted to be on NPR. So I was like, oh, if ever I had a chance, this would have been it. But
you should pitch them.
You know what, NPR, if you're out there and you're listening, I got a lot of things to say, and I absolutely love your what you guys put out in the world. But beside that, yes, Rebecca, I know that you went towards excitement, especially when it goes to actually looking what dieting or crash dieting or, losing weight in such a short time span does to someone. But to be honest, and I'm going to be very open, I just don't know what to think. I am hurt. I am happy to almost feel like I didn't fail. I think what the Times article lacked was a true sense of what this does to you, on an emotional and mental level. I know that post-show I worked incredibly hard and just wasn't able to get a grasp on this. And And I shared with Rebecca many a time that I felt like I just kind of slowly started fading into my own little world to escape, you know, on some level a sense of failure, but also a lot of our viewers out there who are fantastic people. But you know, and I think it's it said it somewhere in the article, but whether you think they're judging you or not, you know, or that whether they are or aren't, you feel that they are. And I'm just truly floored at the article myself, and I don't know what to think. So I'm glad that you're here, Rebecca. Let's go ahead and just unpack this, because this is something that I think is going to have a huge effect on a lot of people, not just Biggest Losers.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting to me is the parallels that I could draw between your loser letter and, I mean, I had no idea. Did you even know this study was
Well,
being
no,
conducted?
no. Listen, I had no clue, and it's
Okay.
so interesting that you say this. Like, you can, the timing is crazy for us because listeners, I know we sound just incredibly put together, but Rebecca and I worked very hard, at least, you know, 24 hours before we put a show on, more like 2 or 3, to really talk about what it is that we're going to share with you guys. Um, but, you know, the Biggest Loser letter came out. It was something that I felt just looking at a finale, and I hadn't seen a finale for a while. And the whole reason why I was watching it was for this very podcast, to be honest.
Hmm.
And I literally get emotional, and it is happy for these people's experience of feeling a sense of pride, and I got through something, but then right away I was just inundated with this sadness, and then this feeling to warn, or to give advice to, or to just reach out, because I know what the years after look like. I mean, I was season 5, so they're on season 17, 16. I really don't even know. Um, but I know there was little to no research really, or follow up done for us.
Hmm.
You know, if we're talking season 8, they followed.
Hmm.
You know,
For
they didn't
six
really do
years. They
much.
followed him for 6 years. That's
Yeah, I
huge in
know.
the research world. I mean, you know, studies are few and far between as it is. It's a funding issue. But, you know, there's like, oh, we did an 8-week program. People lost weight. Woo! You know, and people get excited about that. You know, a 2-year follow up is like miraculous. 6 years is really
Yeah,
meaningful. 6 years is really meaningful because that it shows the potential for weight cycling, which is basically part of what's going on here. But you know, what I found interesting about, and it, you know, kind of like your two reactions. So you talked about the loser letter. I mean, in there, you were basically, it was great advice, and you know, they can hear the whole thing by listening to the other podcast, so I won't repeat it. But um, you were basically talking about you need to get yourself back into what your life is going to be and figure out what that is. But you had this really special line, and it was like, basically said, do you really want to worry about every calorie that ever crosses your mouth? Are you really going to exercise as crazy as you did on the show? And those aren't your words, but that's what I got from it. And you were telling people to really stop and reflect and try to figure out whether it's working with helping professionals, you know, the people that you care about the most, but you got to figure out something that is going to be sustainable and work for you. And that's great advice. But even when you wrote that, you still carried this blame of failure 100% on yourself. 100% on yourself. There was nothing in there that talked about biology or, you know, find your true healthy happy self. I think that you mean those things, but there was nothing that was literal from your mouth saying, you know, that it's not just you. And so when you react to this article, from whatever you were able to glean from it, and, you know, just so everyone knows, we have not had any side conversations about it. So I'm just figuring out what he's read and what he knows, and I'm going to share what I know from, what I garner. I actually read the actual study. But it's like, I don't blame you for being happy or maybe relieved or like, wait a minute. Am
Well,
I unnecessary? Go ahead.
no. I mean, first of all, let me go ahead and address the letter and the fact that there wasn't anything alluding to G or to the other points that you had made. You know, yes, I had an idea that could be a possibility because I live within day out. But when you're out there living your day to day life and surrounded by people who have maybe seen the show or just friends and family, loved ones who had seen your transformation and then seen you creep back, they don't want to hear that. Society doesn't want to hear it's about your biology.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we could put that out there. But at the end of the day, you're still being or judged or sometimes attacked on social media for having put it back on. And yeah, we can say it's the biology, this or that, but it doesn't. People don't really care.
Right. Well, that's why.
I mean,
no, you're right. I mean, that's why research is needed, which is why this is so significant. But even with this research, there were still failures in what the scientists, frankly, when you look at the study, their conclusions don't make it look like they learned any lessons from their own research, because they still say things in there. I mean, it's not verbatim quotes, but the bottom line is they still say things in there like, oh, well, all's not hopeless because what they do, like the Biggest Loser methods, the weight loss is still better than other weight loss methods out there. And I'm like, what? How could you even draw that conclusion? Or their big call to action is like, we have got to fight the reason why the metabolisms are suppressed. We've got to figure out a way to give these people leptin, and so they still don't get it. They're not learning from their research. And that is upsetting. And I think, just like you said, it's because deep down, society doesn't want to hear or talk about the existence of fat people. There's been fat people around forever, way before our food systems change, and I'm not saying yes, there's tons of factors, but the bottom line is there is size diversity. You cannot deny it. And what, the two key things from this study following the Biggest Loser folks for 6 years was that basically when they left the show, metabolism was low. Now, as you lose weight, it takes less calories to keep you alive. So your metabolism does slow down. But even though you're working out a lot, and I believe there's a piece of data that shows that, a lot of fat was lost, but not that much muscle was built. And I think that's because of how low calorie you guys were. But at the end of the show, the metabolism was slower. But this is what confounded the researchers. As contestants regained weight, metabolism did not increase proportionately. So somebody of that same body size, the expected metabolism is higher in someone who never did the weight loss in the first place. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, I totally get the study. I just, so what does that mean? What does that mean, Rebecca? Break that down. We're saying somebody literally who is, and I was listening, of course, this is from NPR, and
mm-hmm.
They were talking about somebody who's 150 pounds and another person who, got down to 150 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Their RMR is not going to be the same.
Right. And you burn fewer calories, and it's significant calories. It's in the range of 500 to 800. So was in the New York Times, Danny, his was the highest discrepancy between someone of his size, what they should be burning, and what he actually burns. There's a difference of 800 calories a day. That's a lunch. So basically, to prevent him from regaining weight, he has to cut out lunch every day.
My
In
gosh.
some contestants, it's 500 calories lower metabolism. What scientists expect is as a person gains weight, your metabolism increases. It's supposed to require more calories to keep you alive. So the bottom line meaning of this study is that the problem is the diet in the first place. We'll get more into that. But the other interesting thing was leptin. And leptin is a hormone that basically says, hey, I'm full, I'm satisfied. It suppresses hunger. Think of it like that way. The opposing hormone is ghrelin, which is called like the grow hormone. Ghrelin is higher to tell you, hey, I'm hungry. Leptin is higher and ghrelin is lower. And leptin says, I'm full, I'm satisfied. So after The Biggest Loser, the leptin was practically non-existent, was not there. They expected that because of starvation. Go ahead.
I was going to say, how many times had we talked about that? We had given presentations a long time ago, and I literally would say to you, I can never feel satisfied. We even had a conversation, if you listen back to our podcast, about how I could never find the perfect hamburger.
Yeah.
I mean, just different. I never, ever, ever felt satisfied. I shared with you this feeling of numbness, and I think that at a certain point, Danny Cahill in the season 8 group celebrated their 6 years. I'm on close to 8. I think we just did 8 or 9. Yeah, so 8. And after a certain point of just living with this and not knowing what this is, you just get kind of numb. And I go back and forth. For our listeners out there, I go back and forth because we're so conditioned in our weight loss experience to take on that individual responsibility. So I go back and forth, and I don't know what to think. Okay, well, here's a study done. It's supposed to be showing why weight, we gain it back, and then I thinking to myself, well, have I been serious about my workouts? Have I really been diligent about my eating? I mean, anybody who talks to me is going to be like, what side does this guy stand on? And that's what I kind of feel left in this really whirlwind of like, I don't know what to think. I know what I've been living with. So am I going to take this information and not necessarily justify, but take this information and unpack it to see, how it can help or how it can move forward knowing these things. I definitely don't see this as an excuse. You had kind of mentioned, Rebecca, maybe are you glad? I don't know what I feel about this study. I think that it's good that we know this now. And, as I move forward, I know I'm working at a deficit, but what do I do? Skip lunches? Just like you said?
No.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I saw that, there's a company out there that's, we can get more of that into people post significant weight loss. What am I going to do? Pop pills for that? And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, just to make sure that we've got clarity on the leptin issue first, and then I'll answer your question about what do you do. So the leptin was in the tank right after the show. Once again, the scientists expect that as a person regains weight, that leptin levels would increase. They did increase, however, only to about 50% of what was expected. So let me tell you what that's like. That's like you get off, you stop doing something extreme and you try to go moderate. You try to go moderate with exercise, let your body heal. You try to go moderate with eating. But your hormone that says you're full and satisfied, you have a little deficit of it. You don't have enough. So like you were saying, you never feel full. You never feel satisfied. And so even if you try to tune into your body, say you were to try to go from Biggest Loser to intuitive eating, which is just would never happen, but just say that's what you tried, your body would be sending the signal, please give me more food. That's the whole point, is that the body is fighting back. It did not, the weight loss in this show, I'm sorry, but It's vanity. It's not health. It's vanity. It's appearance. It's the worst kind because they hijack health. They hijack health and well-being and say, "Oh, that's what this is." And, yes, it's extreme. And this is the other thing that's really ticking me off is, and this is coming out of my own group, certain dietitians, health at every size, are getting it right. Therapists are getting it right. But there's a big group of, they might call themselves weight management experts, which if you actually don't even use that term. You use weight concerns. But where they're like, "Oh, well, this is why extreme dieting is wrong." And, I even had colleagues who privately messaged me over Facebook and said, basically, "I see you're getting your panties in a tizzy over this. I want to make sure you read the journal article where they concluded, that it's not so bad," basically. And I was like, "No, I did read the journal. But what do you define as success? Because if the researchers are honestly calling this success, calling that feeling of being ravenous and that you can't be satisfied because your biology has been altered, how is that remotely successful?" And when they compare it to other diet programs, first of all, I'll note that the lead researcher, Kevin Hall, even says that, and this is NIH, they did a literature review. I have literature of weight cycling on my own computer. I'll put some in the show notes. But they did a literature review, and he even said similar metabolic results were seen in lower intensity types of studies. And then there's a researcher who was quoted who's not involved in the study who said their experience shows the body will fight back for years. And that, said Dr. Michael Schwartz, an obesity and diabetes researcher who is a professor of medicine at University of Washington, is new and important. So he's calling this new and important. But if you're a real obesity researcher and you actually look at that data, you will see weight cycling. It's there. It's just like you said in the beginning, society doesn't want to hear it. We can't accept the fact that dieting is worse for your body than taking care of it.
No, I mean, and I'm not going to argue on that last point with you specifically, Rebecca. I just, I'm going back to the whole societal thing. I mean, if big was in, people would be fighting to get big. That's just where what that's the kind of world that we're in. I don't. I almost feel like I'm not contributing as much as I want to be, just because I think that we should just be literally duking this out, and not duking out, but exploring it, unpacking it, literally on a stage somewhere in front of a group of people that I literally just am floored by this. And I know you're looking for more from me, Rebecca, but I still am trying to think, okay, you know, what long-term effect is this going to continue to have on me? How can I now readjust how I work out, how I eat, how my whole idea of health looks, you know, and at the same time, how do we make sure that we realize and get the message out to our listeners that, you know, living healthy is what's important. Moving your body is important. Eating more nutritiously in a way to fuel your body in a good way is important. Part of me, you know, and here we go. This is where I'm going to take it from. Part of me did see the study myself. There you go. That's what happened, because I know how hard I had worked. And I know that it was creeping on, and I know that I was feeling horrible to a certain extent about myself, and you know, about the weight creeping back on, but I was feeling very capable and strong. So to all those listeners that we have out there, yeah, I don't want them to walk away reading the study or hearing our podcast. And I know they're not going to get it from our podcast, but the study and thinking, okay, well, why even start, or why try, or maybe I shouldn't be moving my body, or, you know, working as intensely. And let me backtrack there. What I mean is, if you find true enjoyment from challenging yourself, from working out, from walking, doing whatever type of exercise you enjoy, continue doing that. If you are living life at a larger weight, but you feel healthy and you know that you're living life to the fullest, keep doing that. I think that one of my initial concerns, again, was people are going to read this and just say, throw their hands up and be like, oh, whatever. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, let me try to help. I'm going to start helping by quoting Dr. Deborah Gard, who is well known in Health at Every Size, and I'll be sure to share the article that she was quoted in the show notes, as well as some ways to get in touch with her. But she's Dr. Deborah Gard, a California psychologist and eating disorder specialist who has often spoken out against discrimination toward overweight individuals. Strongly disagrees how. Oh wait, sorry, I should be before. So Dr. Joseph. Oh gosh, I'm gonna mess up his name. Dr. Joseph Proieto, I'm sorry, from Melbourne, Australia, if I messed up your name, believes there needs to be a dedicated effort to find countermeasures against our body's urges to maintain weight. So this guy wants us to dedicate ourselves to forcing our body into a certain weight that is deemed healthy. And he said we desperately need agents that will suppress hunger and that are safe with long-term use. So this guy wants us to fight our body's natural need for food. You know, biological hunger and a need for nourishment is not, that's just biology. That's not an eating disorder. That's not emotional eating. It's hunger. There's a difference. So that just makes no sense. Anyway, then Deb comes in. Dr. Deborah Gard, a California psychologist and eating disorder specialist who has often spoken out against discrimination toward overweight individuals, strongly disagrees, however. There is a tremendous reluctance to engage with the data and its implications, she told Medical Daily. People are still talking about, quote, solutions, like medications to eliminate hunger or massive therapeutic teams for life. And I think clinicians do not want to disappoint higher weight people who are desperate to change their weight. We have to grapple with the facts here and open our minds to what we can do to support the well-being of people at every weight. Okay, so that's your answer. We need to support well-being first, true health first, physical and mental. And the fact of the matter is, you can be healthy and unhealthy at a wide variety of sizes. And your questions are like, well, you don't want people to misinterpret it. You're trying to figure out your own interpretation. You know, maybe part of you is happy because there's an answer, but also kind of pissed off. You know, like maybe you feel cheated. I don't know. You're not really talking about it. That's fine. But it's like, you can't go back to the past. You chose to be on the show. You were on the show. Whatever you did to your body, you did. How you can learn to reconcile that and have gratitude for those experiences, I would try to get to that just for a better place of well-being. But you control every other choice you make. Every minute, every day, you're in charge. And you've made progress even since we started this podcast. If you think that's the right direction, keep going. You know, but to me, what this says is, yes, work on connecting to your body. Work on intuitive eating. But if, and we don't know, you'd have to get your leptin tested. But if your leptin is lower than it should be, you know, until there's a medical way of stabilizing that, that's another way that you can be kind to your body. And that, you know, you eat balanced and nourish yourself, you know, that all that time management stuff we already talked about. And you enjoy what you're eating. You don't have food rules. And you sense getting full. And you trust that sense of fullness. Then when you start feeling hungry again, if it feels like your typical hunger, you need to listen and trust that signal. It's not going to work to be rigid and restrict because that's only going to reduce your leptin like it did on The Biggest Loser. Do you get what I'm getting at?
yeah, no, absolutely. And I would actually really, I do need to kind of go and get tested.
Yeah, and
and
I don't know
see
if they'll do
kind
that
of,
for who will do that, you
you
know?
know, I'll tell you what, I do need to do that. I would be really interested to see kind of where I'm at. We always talk about, just know your numbers in general. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's so many different numbers that we need to know now as a result of this study, or that we're aware that we need to know of. Um, the more we talk about it and the more I hear, your breakdown of it, the more that I'm continue to look at this article. Um, I really see this as something that I can use. Uh, and you know what? I'm really feeling more empowered right now. Uh, it's going to go in waves because I'm an emotional guy here. Now I'm feeling empowered because I can really use this information, and I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start really food journaling a lot more right now. Let me tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start doing that because I want to see if there's a way, maybe through in I just want to see if there's a way where I can feel a little bit more satiated, even though maybe I don't have the hormonal components that would do that naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can, work with my body to see if I can do that by spreading out meals, smaller bites here and there, and allowing myself um, permission to scrap it if it doesn't work for me and then
Mm-hmm.
move something else out. But I actually want to be able to look at what it is that I'm attempting to do, because for me, if I know I'm trying to do something to work with the information that I'm given, then I'm. But if I'm taking this and I'm just sitting back, then I know I'm going to continue to feel as confused and silenced
Mm-hmm.
as I have been feeling ever since this article has come out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if there's, Rebecca, I'd like to talk with you a little bit more so off air
Mm-hmm.
about maybe how we can approach a study or something. But on air for right now, I want to share that with our listeners. I think that this is an opportunity for me to really breaking it down for myself. Because at a certain point, after you go through this and you don't see the scale continue to drop post experience on the show, you see it increase. There is a point where you kind of feel like you failed, and you kind of stop here and there. You have these little start and stop moments that don't contribute in any way to lifelong health. You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Right. Well, it's a lot to unpack, and you should definitely take your time. This is what I want you to know. This study does not impact body kindness in any way. This study could have never come out, and body kindness would still be there. What you were doing, the road that you're starting to walk down would still be there. So body kindness, 3 pillars: love, connection, caring. These are guides for how we make choices. You talked about taking action. You talked about journaling. That's great. Do the health and happiness journal. It's not calorie counting. It's eating meals and snacks. Was it delicious? Sense your hunger and
Absolutely. Yep.
fullness. Do that. That's not dieting. That is you trying to tune in and connect with your body. And I mean, that's just, look, as a new dad, that's just basic planning. It's planning for self-care. You don't need to create food rules, but just, yes, if you want to pay more attention from a caring way about what you're putting into your body and how you feel, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not doing Whole30 or paleo or whatever. We all need structure. And the last thing I would want for you is your inclination to be, oh, well, this study's saying basically give up, so I'm not doing nothing. It's about finding a structure that feels good to you. And I just think body kindness is that structure that can work for a lot of people. It comes from all these things that have helped me and things that practitioners use and that have been, intuitive eating is a validated method. I mean, it comes from the place of wanting to be good to yourself. And, you mentioned about feeling good from intense exercise. I like to do sometimes intense workouts. Not everybody has to. I like to do them, but I wouldn't want to do Biggest Loser 4, 6, 8 hours a day type intense. That's not good for the body. But it's like you can hold two opposites. So I can do an intense solid core workout. It's 50 minutes and you feel a burn. There's no impact, but you feel a burn and you stop and you take breaks and you're sore for a few days. And then, I take a rest day, I drink lots of water, and then I do yoga. Sometimes it's restorative, sometimes it's a harder. You can do both. You don't have to do intense stuff if that's not your thing. And I think that's the point, is that it's not about following someone else's rule book. It's about you figuring out what sounds good and feels good to you. We could talk about it another time, but I think, I don't know what your attachment to your weight is. And I just think that there are probably better ways of measuring your health besides stepping on the scale. And certainly you should not be checking out of self-care so that suddenly your weight would balloon. I think by focusing on your self-care, you'd be more likely to work with your body to stabilize. And maybe your current weight now is stable, maybe not, I don't know. But, you know, I guess it's something, if I could be helpful, I'll try. What this study is really showing, certainly that the extreme has created negative metabolic impact, you know, between the leptin and the slower metabolism that makes the body fight back, makes it harder to maintain that weight. And then the weight creeps up. That doesn't mean you give up on taking care of yourself, but I do think it directs people to start to say, what is my value? Do I want to take care of myself? Then what does that look like for me? And stay committed to that. And it's hard because you are in a society that does not accept people of various weights and shapes. But we can change society by using our voices and by advocating for ourselves and what health means and advocating for good well-being. And that is where I think you can have a tremendous impact. I know you very well. I know you care very deeply about helping other people, and you care about yourself and your family. You can carve out a much better physical and mental place of health. But I think you still need to just kind of make peace with the past and make new decisions going forward.
No, and I completely agree. Uh, it is about making peace, and it is, again, we've had so many conversations off air, Rebecca and I, about just how I felt and what I was battling with, and you know, both the positive and the negative. Because Rebecca will be the first to tell you that I'm in a lot of ways a defender of the show, or have been a defender of the show as much as I've been, a critic of the show. And it's interesting because I know, Rebecca has been such an advocate for me personally, and I know for contestants that have come off the show in the work that she does, the approach that she takes. And that's why I was, decided to be part of the Body Kindness podcast, was because, I truly feel good about the decisions that I make when they're done on the side of kindness, and that's the truth, and that's why I'm here, and I'm advocating that people really start with kindness and let that expand out into the decisions that you make. I also want our listeners to think about, and this is something I'm going to be thinking about as well. Why do they? Why? Because I can guarantee that there's a couple of us out there, and I'm not judging. I'm just putting it out there because I was, and sometimes I'm still on this side as well. Is it so that we can look better, so that we can be skinnier, so that we can, fit into those certain clothes while people around us? I just want to urge our listeners to be kind to themselves and start with wowing themselves first. Our listeners, and myself included, I'm talking to myself, people, getting healthy. What do we really mean by that? Because I can honestly say there are times, even today, where I say, yes, I want to be healthy. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, and look super good again, or whatever. But, now I have a little girl, Rebecca, and I think to myself, it has shifted. I want to get healthy because I want to be around for a long time. And if my ass a 34 gene, great. And if it doesn't, and I'm feeling great and healthy and capable and able to just hold my little girl and play with her in a size 38, then that's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to lie to myself and be okay, at a higher weight if I'm not feeling healthy. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want our listeners to walk away with.
Okay. Well, I think that's a interesting perspective. It's really important to check in with your values and what matters to you more. And I would just gently put you in this direction of what happens if you don't try to control your weight at all and you just focus on your habits. And has that ever been a possibility? Has that ever been what you did? Or has your life been loving life, loving being a matador, oh my God, have this opportunity to get healthy and be on TV, Biggest Loser, whoa, now I have all these expectations I have to live up to, real life is setting in, lack of support after the show, now we know lack of good, metabolic health after the show, weight creeping up, you feel like a failure, guilt and shame and blame. That spirals you down even further with emotional eating that you didn't even necessarily know was there. Feeling like you should quit, so giving up. And then the more you give up, the more weight you gain, the harder it is to move, the less likely you are to exercise. And, so I would question, and then we got back in touch again and, started podcasting. So, but I would question, have you ever tried this sort of calling a truce with my weight and shape approach where, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good, there's nothing wrong with caring about, even, caring about how clothes fit you and think, it's not that. It's this idea of that, are you willing to be in a natural body for you, for your genetics, your metabolism, while you take care of yourself? And if you lose weight working on body kindness, it's not because you manipulated your body. You changed your habits. And so that is what I'm questioning, if you might, be willing to pursue.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And again, the conversations that we have, whether, throughout this entire podcast, have been working on just that. Mm-hmm. So again, I feel like this is, man, of all the years that we could have chosen to do a podcast, we choose this one. Like, I honestly, part of me, I keep going back and forth. I was mad at this study a bit because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm doing great. Like, I'm feeling good. Like, I'm not worrying about, how many steps I'm getting or how many calories I'm burning. It's about the quality of the walk with my dog. I mean, we're doing some good stuff here, and I could honestly just take so much pride in that. And then the study comes out, and I'm like, oh, you bastards. Like, and I didn't even know who to say bastards to, because I keep reading and trying to figure all this out. Mm-hmm. But yes, absolutely, to answer your question, that's the approach that I'm looking to take. And I'm going to choose to feel empowered. Good. And so make peace.
Good. All right. Well, I'll share what I have, some of the top articles and whatnot in the show notes for the listeners. And I'm sipping on my little latte with a cinnamon stick, and I notice it has this amazing quote on it. So I was not prepared to give it inspiration or motivation, but I'm going to read from my coffee mug. Okay. It says, let's choose today to quench our thirst for the good life by acknowledging the good that already exists in our lives. So I love that. Acknowledging the good, gratitude. There are already good things going on, and it's a great, it's taking action that moves you toward more good things in your life is a real, that's the essence of body kindness. Is this being good to myself? Is this giving me a better life? And part of that is, yes, noticing what's already good, because that's going to give you the good life. So we will talk next time, I believe, finally about the upside of stress. And yeah, I know we're a little delayed. This delayed us a little bit, but we did do the book club. We'll talk about that next time. And then unless something changes, I've been reading Arianna Huffington's book about the sleep revolution. And so I'm really interested in doing a sleep challenge. So just going to tease that. I think that's what we're going to start to bring up over the next couple episodes. And I hope that you'll join me, Bernie, and I hope we have listeners continue to listen.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to pose a little small challenge of my own. I would love to hear what our listeners are thinking. Please feel free to send us your questions, send us your comments. I really value what it is you guys are thinking, and I want to have a conversation with you. So start talking.
That sounds great. Well, go build a healthy and happy life you love and be kind to yourself. If you'd like a free Feel Great guide and a free health and happiness journal, you can sign up for my email list at RebeccaScritchfield.com.